Good morning and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest for November 18th, 2019. I'm the director of the DEFCON Warning System, Thomas Lonelywolf. For those of you who have clicked on us by accident, out of curiosity, came here and followed the link, what we do is we monitor the world's situation with regards to nuclear war. That is our focus, and what we do is we issue an alert code based on how close we are to nuclear war. We aren't doom porn or anything like that. We're not looking forward to nuclear war. We're not survivalists. What we do is we see a need out there that the government really doesn't want to talk about. Nuclear war, doesn't want to prepare the public for it. And when the situation comes down to it, they're probably not going to tell you that things are as bad as they are. That's the hole we fill. We'll come in and we will tell you, because nobody really wants to think about it. Nobody really wants to admit it. So, maybe if there's somebody out there who is thinking about it and who is starting to ring the bell, maybe they'll start to take it more seriously and, prepare themselves for, something that's hopefully will never, ever come. If you haven't done so already, please, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast, bookmark our site, DEFCONWarningSystem.com, our Twitter feed, DEFCON WS Alerts. Don't just go to the Twitter feed DEFCON, because that's the hacker group. Don't go there. We are DEFCON WS Alerts. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the update that was released earlier this month, and what we're going to do is we're going to go more in depth. The update is designed to be very quick, read over in like 3 minutes and be done. Just get in there and hit you with the information, get out. Here we're going to go more in depth, tell you what we're thinking, why we're thinking this, what's gonna come of all this possibly, and basically just go more in depth than what the update is able to do. So for November 18th, the condition code is green. DEFCON is 5. There are currently no imminent nuclear threats at this time. I know we look at things like Iran building their nuclear weapon, North Korea expanding what they have. They're always, making more threats. The most recent threat is that they're not going to enter a negotiation over their nuclear program as long as the United States continues with their hostile actions, and they want that on the negotiating table as well. And until that's there, North Korea is not going to negotiate its nuclear program. We'll get a little bit more into that in just a moment because it is important. But there's a lot of stuff going on out there. India and Pakistan are always fighting each other, but fortunately at this time we're not really marching toward nuclear war quickly. There's always there's a build going on. Something is eventually going to happen someday down the line. Who knows when? Months down the line, years down the line. Human beings, since the fall of man, we're a violent species. We're going to war, and we're eventually going to have a nuclear war, I personally believe. So, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen next month. So that's why we're at DEFCON. We're at DEFCON 5. You don't need to be sweating over nuclear war right now. That's what DEFCON 5 means. It's kind of interesting when we put these alerts out. We say DEFCON 5, no currently imminent, no nuclear threats at the time, and we get all sorts of feedback saying, how can you say that? You should be at DEFCON 3, DEFCON 2. Some even say, we're at DEFCON 1. It's like, are you people crazy? We're not going to nuclear war in the next 12 hours. Why are you saying DEFCON 1? Yes, there's a lot of things going on out there, but nobody's marching toward nuclear war right now. Just relax, go have a Pop-Tart, go play a video game, go to Disneyland. It's okay. Just go about your normal lives. Everything is okay. When things start getting a little hairy, we'll raise the alert level. We will. We're good at that. Relax. It's green. We're good. The big thing that came out in our update was what's happening in the United States. Now, let me preface that by saying the DEFCON warning system is nonpartisan. We do our very, very best not to take sides in any political drama. Unfortunately, politics affects war. War is essentially politics with guns and knives. So when something political happens that can affect a country's strategic ability or its ability to manipulate the strategic map, that's when you start having problems, and that's when it comes to our attention, and that's when we start needing to bring it to your attention. So I know in the United States everybody has been kind of following this impeachment thing. Let's take a look at impeachment and the circus that's going on from this angle. The United States continues to be in a very weak position internationally as the government continues to be impossibly divided and wrapped in impeachment proceedings, negating any negotiating power the U.S. president may have as other countries see a weakened leader who is in no position to make deals or back up any threats. Most countries are waiting for the 2020 election to see who will be or continue to be the leader. In the meantime, enemy states see an opportunity to advance their nuclear programs, including North Korea and Iran. Now, whether or not you believe that the U.S. president is being railroaded in an attempted coup by the opposition party, or whether you see that the U.S. president has done something wrong and needs to be removed, these proceedings have weakened the U.S. president's ability to negotiate. That is a reality. It's the same thing as if you take somebody who committed a crime and you put him in jail, and this person who committed the crime is the sole breadwinner for the family. That family now has lost their sole breadwinner, and their income has dropped. It doesn't matter whether he committed a crime and deserves it. That's the consequence of what happened. It's kind of the same thing of what's happening here in the United States politic. Whether or not the U.S. president deserves what's happening, the consequence of what is happening is that the United States is in a frighteningly weakened position. You look at North Korea. Whether or not you thought that the U.S. president's very tough stance with North Korea was right or wrong, it did have the effect of kind of drawing down North Korea's at least public advancement of their nuclear weapon systems, delivery systems, and things like that. Now that the United States has gone into this lockdown mode of eat the president, North Korea has restarted missile tests. They've restarted their very fiery rhetoric and their threats of non-negotiation. We see Iran now, operating in the Persian Gulf. While they have their crisis with their gas prices now going on and the protests going on in their cities, they are making advancements in their nuclear program. Something that we're going to bring up in the next update. I'll give you a little preview right now. The International Atomic Energy Inspector says that Iran is hiding stuff, and that the AEO is reporting that Iran is capable of enriching up to 60%. That they're uranium up to 60%, which is now a very short hop to weapons grade 90%. That's a pretty big leap that they made. It used to be they were down to like 20% below that, and now they're up to 60%. So it's all these are taking place as the United States is so wrapped up in either destroying this president or defending the president from these people who are trying to destroy him. And I'm trying really hard to phrase this in a nonpartisan way. So if I kind of slip and it sounds like I'm being partisan, please forgive me. I'm not. I'm trying not to. It's just that I'm human, and I do have my own political ideology, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a secessionist. I believe that the United States has gone too far. It's past the point of recovery, and that people who believe in the Constitution just now need to separate themselves, or alternatively kick the other people out of the country and let them form their own country. So that's kind of where I'm politically. I did not vote in the last presidential election. At least I don't think I did. I can't remember. It was kind of far away. I know I didn't vote in the last election, the last couple elections that came up. So that's where I am. So if I slip politically when I'm making these digests, it's that. So you can now understand where I come from and why when I do slip, I phrase things the way that I am, because I'm just making a mistake. But the DEFCON warning system itself, it's absolutely nonpartisan. What you guys do with your politics and who you vote for, we just don't care. We are only interested in how it is going to affect the threat of nuclear war. If you guys, if the United States elects somebody who says, the day after I get elected, I'm going to launch 1,000 missiles at Russia, yeah, we're going to kind of balk at that. We're going to say, this guy is going to start a nuclear war. But other than that, when candidates come up, we're just going to look at them and say, here's what this person's going to do. Here's how we think they're going to act on the world stage, and how that is going to possibly lead us toward or away from nuclear war. If you guys want to elect them, that's all up to you. We're not going to recommend anything. We're just going to say these are the possible consequences of what this candidate may do. So that's as far as we go into politics. We're only going to analyze what they do. We don't care whether you vote for them or not. That's not our job. So, but going back to what I was saying about what's happening currently, this opposition party and the current party in power have just put the United States in an impossibly weak position. Nobody takes the United States seriously, not because they didn't like the president. Under Obama, he was a very weak president internationally. He was, a laughingstock among the other countries, except for North Korea. He really was pretty strong in North Korea, but as far as Russia was and Iran and the other enemy actors, Obama personally was very, very weak and put the United States in a very bad position. With the current U.S. president, he's very fiery, very unpredictable, kind of a little scattered, not focused, but he was respected in that you respect like a juggernaut, or you respect somebody who you're not quite sure what they're going to do, but they can beat the crud out of you if he was challenged. So the current U.S. president is very strong internationally. But the current proceedings have made him very weak because other actors know that the United States has no follow-through because the government is just busy eating itself up. And this is very, very bad because it allows North Korea to develop its weapons unhindered. It allows Iran to just go about whatever it wants to do, fooling these international inspectors, even though they're kind of clued in a little bit of what's going on, but they give Iran an awful lot of pass on this sort of stuff. The United Nations inspector recently came out and said that Iran is currently in compliance with the nuclear deal, and they're not. But Iran only allows the UN to inspect so much. And the inspector has to give Iran warning that they're coming, and there's no anytime, anywhere inspection, so Iran is able to clean things up. They're able to steer the inspector where they want them to go, so Iran gets a really, really big pass. And this is more so now because the United States has no power. So that's all I'm going to say about this, because I'm just going to start repeating myself. And I like I said, I don't know where you are politically, whether you want the U.S. president out or whether you think he's being railroaded in a coup. The simple fact that this is happening has just made the United States almost a non-player in the world. And when a country like the United States is a non-player, then everything just goes to chaos. And there's a lot of people who believe the United States really should not be as big an influence in the world as it is, because the United States is out there playing policeman, trying to stamp out so many fires, and its military is stretched very thin, and that is true. And I'm not saying that because it's a political position. I'm saying that because the United States is a military that can only do so much, and if the military is spread out too much, it is ineffective. And that's kind of like where the United States is right now. Its military is ineffective because it's just spread too far out. So if the United States wants to defend itself better, it needs to rein itself in a little bit more and let other countries, take care of their own business. So I'm not suggesting a policy. I'm just pointing out consequences of actions that are taking place. So for Iran, it says it will continue pulling back from commitments made under the nuclear agreement until it achieves the desired result, whatever that desired result means. Some will say that the desired result will be that the United States and or at least the European Union comes back to the negotiating table and removes a lot of the sanctions that are on Iran. That's probably what Iran means by desired results. So basically what we're seeing is a threat. Do what we want, or we're going to continue our nuclear program. That's the same thing that North Korea is doing, except North Korea has no intention of giving up its nuclear weapons. Iran probably is not going to give up its nuclear weapons because they can use them against Israel, and Iran has avowed to destroy Israel. They recently came out and said, we have no intention, we don't want to destroy the Jews, we just want to destroy Israel. Well, that's an outright lie. They just want to destroy the Jews themselves. This is a conflict that's been going on for thousands of years. Historically, it goes back to the division between Jacob and Ishmael. They wanted Ishmael to have the blessing, but it went to Jacob, who became Israel. And basically, you got cousins fighting against each other. This is a blood feud, and this is why it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And the United States or anybody else is not going to be able to solve this. They're just going to keep fighting until the second coming. So there you are. So Iran has made this claim that they're able to enrich uranium to weapons grade level. Like I said before, reports are that they're up to 60%. Maybe they can get it up to 90% right now. Maybe not. Who knows? The fact that they're trying to get there is a very, very bad sign. It's something that we should be taking seriously. But the current world political situation is also very weak. The European Union, they're just a bunch of appeasers, and they're going to keep letting Iran getting away with this and get away with this until eventually they have nuclear weapons. They want them because Israel has them. So, maybe Iran is just going to keep pursuing them no matter what, even if they get what they want, which is the sanctions removed. I don't know. That's kind of my guess. Certainly they were working on these weapons before anybody knew about them. So there's no reason to think that they're going to stop just because they're given sanctions relief. They're just going to keep doing it clandestinely because they want these weapons. And it's not for self-defense. It's to use against Israel. And also because, hey, North Korea's got them. North Korea's now, at least respected in that they have to be dealt with on a different level than a country like Iran is. So this will raise Iran's prestige. It will raise Iran's power, and it will make Iran pretty much king of the Middle East. Of course, once Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia is going to want nuclear weapons. And of course, we have Pakistan, who already has nuclear weapons, and India has nuclear weapons. So that's one of those things that's just going to spiral out of control. But right now, the European Union is going to appease Iran into having nuclear weapons. The United States is not in a position to stop Iran from having nuclear weapons. Sanctions aren't working because the Europeans are allowing Iran to work around them. There are other countries that are allowing Iran to work around them. It's the same thing with North Korea. North Korea has China helping them evade the sanctions and Russia helping them evade the sanctions. So as long as the world doesn't come together, these countries are going to get their nuclear weapons. North Korea continues its weapons development, this time announcing successful launch of sub-based ballistic missile as well as multiple rocket launchers. There's talk now that North Korea is going to be testing an ICBM or possibly a atmospheric or space-based weapons test. I don't really think there's going to be a weapons test in space. Atmospheric, you don't really need one except for show. I kind of think that North Korea may detonate a weapon atmospherically. I don't know. That would certainly unite the world against North Korea, and they kind of don't want that. We may see an underground one, but I don't know what to say without repeating myself. We're doing all kinds of bad when it comes to North Korea because you got China and Russia, who are sabotaging efforts. You got the United States, who is just in a really weak position, and nobody is willing to go in there and do the dirty thing. And the dirty thing being go in and just take out their facilities. Same thing with Iran. Nobody's willing to go in and do the dirty thing, and as long as they got people who are willing to help them skirt the sanctions, you've got nothing. I'm not advocating that we should go in and start bombing, but unless you're willing to do that, you really don't have a real hand to play. And this is kind of like, you take the small bad before you have to deal with the big bad. North Korea is a very resilient country. They don't care about their people. They don't care about how they suffer. So you don't have a whole lot to work with there. You know what? If I was president of the United States, when it comes to North Korea or Iran, I kind of don't know what to do about them because, sanctions aren't going to work. Bombing them is politically untenable. So it's a tough situation. You don't want these countries to have them, but you really have no way to stop them because the world is just so weak and just so full of appeasers and so full of just bad people who are going to help them get these weapons. It's just, I don't know what to do, but that's the situation that we're facing. Russia sends strategic bombers to South Africa as it extends its influence, and Russia is to help China build its missile defense system. So you got Russia and China working together, and this is a case of your enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so Russia and China, they don't like each other. They still don't like each other, but they see the United States as a common enemy, and they're going to work toward a common goal of stopping the United States. And this impeachment thing is working right into what they want. So they're going to, expand what they're doing. I'm kind of surprised that Russia hasn't made a move further into Ukraine or into that area, but because this is a perfect time to do it. But they haven't, so that's good news on that front. But China is going to continue to be a major problem. Fortunately, China isn't really into warfare, at least not offensively. They're looking at it defensively. They're looking at it that in an area of denial sort of thing, where they're going to inflict damage enough so that the United States or some other country just doesn't want to make war, and China is they've said it before, they're willing to sacrifice 1 million soldiers. They got another 1 million, ready to back them up. So they kind of don't care about their people either. And when you have a country that doesn't care about its people, they are very dangerous because they don't mind sacrifice. Because as long as it's not them as long as it's not the leaders making the sacrifice, as long as they got all those, those soldiers out there who are willing to, who they're willing to let die, then, what do they care? Same thing with North Korea. So that's kind of the same thing with Iran too. You got a bunch of people who are willing to, suicide themselves and die for the regime. The regime itself is not willing to sacrifice himself. Same thing with North Korea. Kim Jong-un is not willing to sacrifice himself, but he certainly is willing to sacrifice 1 million of his own people. Same thing with China. China is absolutely willing to sacrifice 1 million of its own citizens. They're not willing to sacrifice the leadership, but those citizens, yeah, they can go ahead and die. So that's kind of China's strategy is, sink a couple U.S. aircraft carriers, and the United States are just a bunch of weak-kneed, frightened children that they'll just run away. And given what I'm seeing among the American public, I think China's kind of right. As long as the United States itself is not directly attacked, the U.S. public is not really interested in a war or any kind of real conflict. So China is going to be able to grow itself in South China Sea. Russia is being able to expand its influence. Iran is going to be able to expand its influence because the American people are not really willing to go out there and do the dirty work as long as it's not them being attacked. And the problem with that is that you allow these other countries to build themselves up so much that they eventually do become a threat to the United States. We saw that in World War II, where Germany didn't bother the United States, so the United States kind of didn't get involved, except for the Lend-Lease policy they had with Great Britain and the supplies they were sending to European countries. But Germany was allowed to grow from being ineffective to almost a world conqueror because nobody wanted to deal with them when they were small and relatively ineffective. So this is kind of the problem that we're having with these countries right now. Can't stop Russia. We can kind of curtail China, but they've got their tentacles in economically so much that they're becoming very, very difficult to dislodge. But with North Korea and Iran, don't deal with them now. They're going to become a bigger problem later. We should have dealt with them 20 years ago, but we didn't. So now they're a bigger problem now. And if we don't deal with them now, they're going to be a bigger problem later. But again, this all falls down to, does the United States and Europe and the world have it in them to deal with it now? And they don't. That's why we see the appeasers in the European Union. We see the appeasers in the United States. And that's kind of where we are. So finally, the United States is looking into plans to remove nuclear weapons from Turkey. Well, Turkey's always been kind of a problem. They're kind of playing both sides now. They bought a missile system from Russia. And with the turmoil going on over there, does NATO really want nuclear weapons in Turkey? And the question actually becomes, does NATO really want Turkey as a NATO member? with its obligations that NATO will have should Turkey find itself in a war with, say, Syria or Russia or something like that. Can you trust Turkey? And so that's the question that's being asked right now. And we go back to, the United States being, do we want a war if we haven't been attacked? We all kind of remember how the United States came together after the U.S. was attacked on September 11th, when the Twin Towers were attacked and the Pentagon was attacked. The United States really came together, and the terrorists were kind of surprised at how bat crap crazy the United States reacted. The United States reacted and took two countries away from, these hardcore Muslims, and they were kind of surprised. They thought the United States was going to kind of roll over. So that was a uniting moment. So it kind of showed them that if you don't attack the United States really isn't going to do a whole lot to you, and the United States is going to, kind of retreat to itself, and they're going to have this eternal conflict of, do we want to send soldiers over to the Middle East to die for what the American public perceives to be a Middle East problem and not a United States problem? So that's kind of been their strategy lately. Don't touch the United States itself, and the United States will kind of leave you alone, at least more so than if you blow up something in the United States and have them come together and send over a bazillion troops and just take, a bunch of countries away from you. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but going back to Turkey, that has become the great question today. Do we want nuclear weapons in Turkey, considering how unreliable the country has become? And, does NATO even want Turkey as a member anymore? It's the whole idea of having Turkey in NATO was as a buffer to Russia. Well, is that buffer even needed anymore? And sure, you can talk about, well, if Turkey falls, then Russia's got direct access to the Middle East and oil fields and all sorts of things like that. But, really, is Turkey really that much of a buffer now that they're leaning more toward Russia? And is that buffer even needed in this day and time? So that's kind of things that, the politicians are going to talk over, the military strategists are going to talk over, but it comes down to, are you going to sacrifice Chicago for Istanbul? Where is Istanbul? Yeah, it is Turkey. Istanbul is Constantinople now. Istanbul is Constantinople now. Okay, I like that song. So anyway, that's kind of where we're standing right now this month. There's a lot going on. The United States, that's the big thing, how weak the United States is. And I keep going back over that because it is so vitally important that the American public understands what it's doing to itself. That wherever your politics are, don't let them eat you up so much that you end up destroying your own country, because that's kind of the path you've set the country on now. There's no middle ground anymore. Poll after poll has now shown that the left can't even see the right side of things, and the right can't even see the left side of things, and they can't even agree to disagree anymore. It's do or die now. That it really is almost to the point of the left wants to get rid of the right, and the right wants to get rid of the left. They can't even live together anymore. And this is a monumentally dangerous place to be, because as we eat each other up, it creates a vacuum in the world theater, which, as nature reports vacuum, other countries are going to come in and fill. So Russia and Iran and North Korea, they're loving this. An unstable United States allows them to expand their nuclear weapons, expand their influence. And I know what a lot of you are thinking. If Donald Trump hadn't done something that was impeachable, or if the Democrats would just stop trying to do this coup, then we wouldn't have this problem. Well, and that's why the United States has found itself in the position that it's in. An incredibly weak position that's just going to make things worse in the world theater. So 2020 is going to be an interesting year. 2021 is going to be really fascinating. So let's look forward to some more problems coming down the line. Like I said, next month we're going to do the Ask Me Anything. So if you watch our community forum, you'll see a thread there that says, ask me anything, post your questions there. In the next digest, I will answer any question that you ask me. Except my family life, I'm not going to answer questions about that. Private stuff, I'm not going to answer. But other than that, ask me anything. We'll get to that. You'll also see a little Twitter thing out there that says, getting ready for the digest. So please be sure to visit us on our community forum message board. That is the best way to interact with us. That's where our staff is. We do have we also have our Twitter feed. We don't interact as much there, so kind of don't post there. Post on our community forum. Visit subscribe to our YouTube channel. And so I will see you next month. I am Thomas Lonelywolf, the director of the DEFCON warning system.